The boardroom felt colder than usual that Tuesday morning. I sat across from Brenda, the HR director, watching her shuffle papers with that fake smile she always wore. 30 years I'd given to Optimus Corporation, 30 years of 12-hour days, missed family dinners, and company loyalty that ran deeper than my own blood. "Warren, let's be honest here," Brenda said, her voice dripping with condescension. "You're 59. You're too old, too slow. Frankly, you're worthless to us now." The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. I froze, unable to breathe. Around the table, younger employees, kids I'd trained myself, started snickering. The worst part was hearing Leo, my former protégé, actually laugh out loud. My hands trembled as I gripped the edge of the mahogany table. "The market's changing," Brenda continued, clearly enjoying herself. "We need fresh blood, new ideas. People who can keep up." I wanted to scream. I wanted to list every project I'd saved, every client I'd brought in, every crisis I'd solved. Instead, I sat there in stunned silence, watching my career die in front of a room full of people who owed their jobs to me. Security appeared at my desk within minutes. No warning, no courtesy, just 2 guards with a cardboard box and stern faces. The humiliation burned through me as I packed 30 years of memories into that pathetic container. My family photos went in first, pictures of my kids at graduation, my wife at our anniversary dinner. Then my coffee mug, the one with "World's Best Dad" that my daughter gave me 10 years ago. My awards, my certificates, my life's work reduced to a box small enough to carry with one arm. The worst part wasn't the packing. It was watching my colleagues. People I'd mentored, defended, and considered friends suddenly found their computer screens fascinating. Nobody looked at me. Nobody said goodbye. The silence was deafening. "Sir, we need to escort you out now," one guard said, his voice mechanical. As I walked through the office for the last time, carrying that box like a coffin, I heard whispers behind me. 30 years of dedication, and this was how it ended. Not with appreciation or respect, but with shame and a cardboard box. I kept my head high, but inside, something was breaking apart. That evening, I sat in my home office staring at my laptop screen. The company website had already been updated. There it was, in black and white, Leo Hutchinson promoted to senior director. My job. My title. My responsibility. The kid I'd hired straight from college. The one I'd taught everything he knew about the industry. The one who'd laughed at me in that boardroom just hours earlier. Now he was sitting in my chair, probably going through my files, taking credit for my work. My stomach twisted as I read further. They'd cut the salary in half but kept all the responsibilities. Classic corporate move. Get rid of the expensive veteran, promote the cheap replacement, and pocket the difference. I'd seen it happen to others, but never imagined it would happen to me. The betrayal cut deeper than the firing. Leo had sat in my office countless times, asking for advice, seeking mentorship. I'd recommended him for raises, defended him to upper management, treated him like a son. And this was how he repaid me, by stepping over my corpse to climb the ladder. I closed the laptop and walked to the kitchen, but the anger followed me everywhere. I sat in my car in the empty office parking lot at midnight, staring up at the building where I'd spent most of my adult life. The rage had been building all day, starting as a simmer and now boiling over into something I'd never felt before. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel. 30 years. 3 decades of loyalty, hard work, and dedication. I'd sacrificed everything for that company. Missed my son's baseball games, worked through vacations, stayed late every night to make sure projects succeeded. And they called me worthless. Tears blurred my vision, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of pure, burning fury. I thought about Brenda's smug smile, Leo's laughter, the way everyone had turned their backs on me. The way they'd treated me like garbage to be thrown away. No, I whispered into the darkness. They're going to regret this. Every single one of them. The words came out quiet, but they carried the weight of a promise. This wasn't over. Not even close. They wanted to play games? Fine. But they had no idea who they were playing with. I had nothing left to lose, and that made me dangerous. Back home, I headed straight to my basement office. In the corner sat 3 filing cabinets I'd accumulated over the years, copies of everything I'd worked on, backup files, and documents I'd kept, just in case. Tonight, just in case had arrived. I pulled out folder after folder, spreading papers across my desk. Contract negotiations where corners had been cut. HR memos discussing problem employees. Compliance reports that had been buried. Financial discrepancies I'd noticed but been told to ignore. For 30 years, I'd been a loyal soldier, keeping my mouth shut about questionable practices. I'd seen things, heard things, documented things. Not because I was planning anything, I wasn't that type of person. I just believed in keeping good records. Now those records looked like ammunition. Unpaid overtime records. Age discrimination complaints that had been mysteriously lost. Safety violations that had been covered up. Emails between executives joking about firing older workers. Each document was a potential lawsuit, a scandal waiting to happen. My hands moved faster as I organized everything into categories. Illegal firing practices. Financial irregularities. OSHA violations. Labor law breaches. They'd given me the tools for their own destruction, and they didn't even know it. The basement felt like a war room now. The restaurant was quiet for a Tuesday lunch, perfect for the conversation I needed to have. Across from me sat Rose, a former client who'd become a friend over the years. She'd left Optimus 2 years ago to start her own consulting firm. "Warren, you look terrible," she said, stirring her coffee. "What happened?" I told her everything. The boardroom humiliation, the firing, Leo's promotion. With each detail, her expression grew darker. "That's disgusting," she said when I finished. "But honestly, I'm not surprised. The whole industry's been talking about Optimus. Morale has been in the toilet since the new leadership took over." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Warren, I've been getting calls. Clients asking if I know anyone who can replace the Optimus team. Word is getting out that they're losing their best people." My heart started beating faster. "What kind of calls?" "The kind that could start a revolution," she said with a smile. "These clients trusted you, not the company. They're looking for someone who actually knows what they're doing." For the first time in days, I smiled back. Maybe I wasn't as alone as I'd thought. Maybe there was an opportunity hiding in this disaster. Rose was right, I had relationships that went deeper than corporate walls. The coffee shop was nearly empty when I walked in. Across the room, sitting in a corner booth, was the man I'd come to see. Lawrence Bishop, CEO of Crosspoint Industries, Optimus Corp's biggest competitor. "Warren," he said, standing to shake my hand. "I was sorry to hear about what happened. That company's lost its mind. We'd known each other for years through industry events. Always competitors, but respectful ones. Now that dynamic was about to change." "Lawrence, I'll be direct," I said as we sat down. "I'm looking for a partnership. Something that benefits both of us." He slid a coffee across the table to me. "I'm listening." "You want to take down Optimus," I said. "I want revenge." "Those interests align perfectly." His eyes lit up. "What do you have in mind?" "I have inside knowledge, client relationships, and documentation of practices that would make headlines. You have resources and infrastructure." I paused for effect. "Together, we could destroy them." Lawrence was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. Then he smiled, not a friendly smile, but a predatory one. "Warren, I think this could be the beginning of a beautiful partnership." My hands shook with excitement, not fear. The war was about to begin. The Crosspoint Industries office was everything Optimus Corp wasn't: modern, dynamic, and buzzing with energy. Lawrence led me to a conference room where legal documents were already waiting. "We move fast here," he said, closing the door behind us. The partnership agreement was straightforward. Crosspoint would provide funding, infrastructure, and legal support. I would provide intelligence, client contacts, and strategic guidance. Most importantly, everything would be done quietly until we were ready to strike. No grand speeches, Lawrence warned as I signed. No dramatic confrontations. "This is chess, not checkers. We move carefully, strategically, and when we're ready, we'll take them apart piece by piece." I nodded, understanding perfectly. Revenge served cold was the most satisfying kind. The lawyer across from me, a sharp woman named Catherine, spoke up. "Warren, everything you've described gives us multiple legal angles. Age discrimination, labor violations, financial irregularities. We could bury them in lawsuits alone." "But that's not enough," I said. "Lawsuits they can survive. What they can't survive is losing their reputation and their clients simultaneously." Lawrence grinned. "I like how you think." As I left the building that day, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks: hope. No, not hope. Power. The game had changed, and now I held the better cards. My basement office had transformed into something that would make a detective proud. Documents covered every surface, organized by date, severity, and potential impact. I'd been working 18-hour days, going through everything with a lawyer's precision. The age discrimination file was particularly damning. Emails between Brenda and upper management discussing cleaning house of older employees. Spreadsheets showing the correlation between age and termination rates. Records of younger, less qualified candidates being hired to replace experienced workers. The financial irregularities folder was growing too. Inflated expense reports from executives. Payments to shell companies that didn't seem to provide any services. Missing funds from employee benefit programs. Nothing huge by itself, but together they painted a picture of systematic corruption. Labor violations filled another entire drawer. Unpaid overtime that had been reclassified as consulting work. Employees forced to work off the clock. Safety training that existed only on paper. Each document was a weapon, and I was building an arsenal. Catherine had provided me with a secure server where I could upload everything safely. Every night, I'd scan and organize more files. The evidence was overwhelming. Optimus Corp wasn't just a bad employer, they were actively breaking dozens of laws. By the end of the week, I had enough material to sync them permanently. The video was anonymous, uploaded to a file-sharing site with no identifying information. But I knew it would find its way to every inbox in the company within hours. The footage was from the security cameras in the HR department, cameras they'd forgotten existed. It showed Brenda and two other managers laughing about older employees, using words like dead weight and retirement ready. The audio was crystal clear. "These old-timers think they're irreplaceable," Brenda's voice came through perfectly. "Warren actually thought his age was an asset. Can you believe that?" More laughter. More cruel comments. Then the worst part, they started naming names, mocking employees by their ages, physical appearances, and personal struggles. 60-year-old Jacob, who walked with a cane. 58-year-old Agnes, who'd been caring for her sick husband. I'd edited the video carefully, including only the most damaging parts. 43 minutes of pure corporate evil, condensed into 12 minutes of career-ending evidence. The email I sent was simple: "Thought you might want to see what HR really thinks of the workforce." A concerned employee. I sent it to everyone in the company directory. Every employee, every department, every level of management. By morning, there wouldn't be a person at Optimus Corp who hadn't seen their leadership's true colors. The panic started before 9 a.m. I sat in my car across the street from the Optimus building, watching the chaos unfold through the lobby windows. Employees were clustering in groups, phones out, sharing the video that had exploded across their inboxes overnight. My phone buzzed with a leaked voicemail that someone had forwarded to me. It was the CEO's voice, panicked and desperate, "Get that video down now. Before investors see it. Before the media gets hold of it. I don't care what it takes, make this disappear." Too late. The internet doesn't forget, and I'd made sure copies were everywhere. News outlets, social media, industry forums. The video was spreading like wildfire, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Through the lobby windows, I could see executives running around like ants from a kicked hill. Emergency meetings. Damage control sessions. Legal consultations. The calm, controlled facade of corporate power was crumbling in real time. My phone rang. "Rose. Warren, have you seen the news? Optimus Corp is melting down. There's a video of their HR department that's absolutely devastating." "Really?" I said, trying to sound surprised. I hadn't heard. "It's everywhere. Local news, industry publications, social media. They're finished." I smiled, watching Brenda run across the lobby with papers in her arms. The dominoes were falling exactly as planned. The phone calls started that afternoon. First Rose, then former clients I hadn't heard from in months. Word was spreading through the industry faster than gossip at a small-town diner. "Warren, we need to talk," said the voice on the other end. It was Linus, the procurement director at one of Optimus's biggest accounts. "After seeing that video, we're reconsidering our relationship with them. Are you available for consulting work?" By the end of the day, I'd received 14 similar calls. Clients who'd worked with me for years, who trusted my judgment and expertise, wanted to know if I was available. The exodus from Optimus Corp had begun, and I was the life raft they were all swimming toward. Lawrence was ecstatic when I updated him. "This is better than we hoped," he said over the phone. "They're hemorrhaging clients, and you're catching them all." The beautiful part was that I wasn't even trying to steal their business. The clients were coming to me, disgusted by what they'd seen in that video. They didn't want to work with a company that treated people like garbage. Each contract I signed was another nail in Optimus's coffin. Not only were they losing revenue, but that revenue was flowing directly to their biggest competitor, through me. The war was turning into a rout. I circled the date in red ink, the quarterly shareholders' meeting. 4 weeks away, and it would be the perfect stage for the final act of this drama. Lawrence and his team had been busy behind the scenes, quietly buying up distressed Optimus stock as the price plummeted. The video scandal had tanked their market value, and smart money was betting against them. What the market didn't know was that we were orchestrating their complete destruction. For weeks, I said to myself, staring at the calendar on my wall. 4 weeks to finish what they started. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. By the time of the shareholders' meeting, Optimus would be so weakened that Crosspoint could announce a hostile takeover bid. The shareholders, watching their investment disappear, would welcome a buyout offer with open arms. And I would be there, standing next to Lawrence, as we dissolved the company that had thrown me away like trash. The irony was delicious. They'd fired me to save money, but my dismissal would end up costing them everything. The 59-year-old they'd called worthless was about to become the architect of their destruction. I spent the evening organizing my files one more time, making sure every piece of evidence was perfect. This had to be flawless. There would be no second chances. The call came on a Tuesday evening while I was reviewing client contracts. The voice was familiar but nervous. Angela, a department manager I'd mentored for years. "Warren, we need to talk," she whispered into the phone. "But not here. Can you meet me tomorrow?" The coffee shop was half empty when I arrived. Angela was already there, looking nervous and tired. She'd aged years in the weeks since I'd left. "This place is a nightmare now," she said without preamble. "Morale is destroyed. Half the staff is looking for new jobs. Leo has no idea what he's doing, and everyone knows it." She slid a manila envelope across the table. "I've been keeping records. Emails, memos, financial documents. Everything that proves what really happened to you, and what they're doing to other employees now." My heart raced as I flipped through the contents. Smoking gun after smoking gun. Emails discussing age discrimination policies. Memos about cutting benefits for long-term employees. Budget projections based on firing experienced workers. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. Angela looked me in the eye. "Because what they did to you was wrong. Because I'm tired of working for criminals. Because someone needs to stop them. I had another ally inside the company, feeding me intelligence. The noose around Optimus Corp's neck was tightening, and they didn't even know it." The interview aired on the local business news channel during prime time. The CEO, looking confident and smug, sat across from the reporter discussing modernization efforts and workforce optimization. "Critics say you're engaging in age discrimination," the reporter said. The CEO's laugh was dismissive. "That's ridiculous. We're simply updating our workforce for the digital age." Employees like Warren, our former senior director, represented the old way of thinking. We needed fresh perspectives. He leaned forward, speaking directly to the camera. "Sometimes you have to make tough decisions. We're phasing out outdated staff to make room for innovation." I was recording every word from my living room couch. This was exactly what I needed, the CEO himself, on camera, essentially admitting to age discrimination. His arrogance was providing me with the final piece of evidence I needed. The reporter pressed further. "But doesn't experience have value?" "Of course it does," the CEO replied smoothly. "But there comes a time when experience becomes obsolete. The market has no patience for employees who can't adapt." I stopped the recording and immediately called Catherine, the lawyer. This interview, combined with everything else we had, would be the centerpiece of our case. The CEO's own words would destroy him. The message came through LinkedIn from a journalist I didn't recognize. "Hi Warren, I'm investigating employment practices in the tech industry. Off the record, is it true that Optimus Corp specifically targets older workers for termination?" My fingers hesitated over tea. Trial location, a quiet restaurant downtown where the lighting was dim and conversation stayed private. The journalist, a young woman named Beth, had done her homework. She knew about the video, the client exodus, and the stock price collapse. "I've been getting tips about Optimus for weeks," she said, pulling out a digital recorder. "Employees reaching out anonymously, former clients complaining about service quality since they fired experienced staff. Your name keeps coming up." I told her everything. The boardroom humiliation, the systematic age discrimination, the evidence I'd collected over 30 years. She listened intently, asking sharp questions and taking detailed notes. "This is bigger than just your story," she said when I finished. "This is about corporate America's treatment of older workers. It's a pattern that needs to be exposed." 2 weeks later, the story would be front-page news. The headlines hit like a tsunami. Age discrimination scandal rocks tech giant. Optimus Corp under federal investigation. Video exposes corporate culture of ageism. I sat in my breakfast nook, surrounded by newspapers and printouts of online articles. Every major publication had picked up the story. The journalist, Beth, had done incredible work, connecting my case to a broader pattern of discrimination in the industry. The stock price had completely collapsed. Down 67% in 2 days, with no bottom in sight. Trading was so volatile that they'd suspended operations twice to prevent a complete meltdown. My phone was ringing constantly. News outlets wanting interviews. Lawyers offering to represent me in discrimination lawsuits. Former colleagues reaching out with their own stories of mistreatment. The best call came from Rose. "Warren, you did it. They're finished. Brenda resigned this morning, effective immediately. The CEO called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow." I felt a satisfaction deeper than anything I'd experienced in my career. This wasn't just revenge, it was justice. They'd thought they could discard people like garbage, and now they were learning the cost of that arrogance. But the story wasn't over yet. The best was still to come. My name was everywhere. LinkedIn posts praising my perseverance. Industry forums calling me a hero for older workers. Messages from strangers sharing their own stories of age discrimination. Warren's behind all of this, I read in one comment thread. The man they called worthless just destroyed an entire company. He's unstoppable. The attention was both gratifying and overwhelming. For 30 years, I'd worked in the shadows, solving problems quietly and efficiently. Now I was the face of a movement, whether I'd intended to be or not. Lawrence called with updates. "Warren, we're getting approached by institutional investors who want to back our takeover bid. Everyone smells blood in the water." The plan was working perfectly. Optimus was wounded and vulnerable, their reputation in ruins, their client base fleeing. Crosspoint was positioned to pick up the pieces for pennies on the dollar. But the personal satisfaction was what mattered most. Every news story, every social media post, every industry publication that mentioned my name was proof that I wasn't worthless. I was the guy who'd fought back and won. The 59-year-old they discarded like trash had become their nightmare. The student had become the master, and the lesson was about to conclude. The phone rang at 7 a.m. on Thursday morning. I almost didn't answer the unknown number, but something made me pick up. "Warren, please, we need to talk." It was Brenda's voice, but she sounded nothing like the confident executive who'd humiliated me in that boardroom. She sounded broken. "Hello, Brenda," I said calmly. "How are things at Optimus these days?" "You know how things are," she said, her voice cracking. "Warren, I'm calling to ask for your help. The lawyers say you have documents that could destroy what's left of the company. Maybe we could work something out." The silence stretched between us as I let her words hang in the air. The woman who'd called me worthless was now begging for mercy. "Please," she continued. "I have a family. Kids in college. If this company goes under completely, a lot of innocent people will lose their jobs. You should have thought about that before you called me worthless," I said, my voice like ice. "Warren, I'm sorry. I was wrong. We were all wrong. Please, can we meet? Can we talk about how to fix this?" I let the silence drag on for another 10 seconds, then quietly hung up the phone. Some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt. The war room at Crosspoint Industries was buzzing with activity. Lawyers, financial analysts, and public relations specialists worked around the clock preparing for Monday's announcement. The hostile takeover bid was ready, and the contracts were prepared to carve up Optimus Corp like a Thanksgiving turkey. "Warren, you should see these numbers," Lawrence said, spreading financial projections across the conference table. "We're going to acquire their assets for less than 30 cents on the dollar. Their client base, their intellectual property, their office buildings, everything. The best part was the personnel plan. We'd identified the talented employees buried under Optimus's toxic management and were prepared to offer them positions with better pay and actual respect. The dead weight, the executives who'd created this mess, would be cut loose immediately. Angela was already on board as a department head. Several other managers I'd mentored over the years had quietly agreed to join us after the acquisition. We weren't just destroying Optimus, we were rebuilding it properly. Monday is going to be beautiful, Lawrence said with a predatory smile. I thought about the shareholders' meeting, the media attention, the moment when I'd stand before the people who'd discarded me and reveal who really had the power now. The countdown was almost over. The hotel ballroom was packed with shareholders, reporters, and corporate representatives. The quarterly meeting that should have been routine had become a public spectacle, drawing crowds hungry to witness the final collapse of a once powerful company. I sat in the back row, watching the chaos unfold. Optimus's executives looked like condemned men walking to the gallows. The CEO's confidence from that television interview had evaporated completely. Then Lawrence stood up from the front row, straightening his tie and walking to the microphone with the calm authority of a man holding all the cards. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the room. "Crosspoint Industries would like to announce our intention to acquire Optimus Corp through a hostile takeover bid." Gasps rippled through the audience. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled notes frantically. Furthermore, Lawrence continued, "We'd like to introduce our new senior strategic advisor, who will be overseeing the transition." He gestured toward the back of the room where I sat. "Warren Thompson, formerly of Optimus Corporation." More gasps. Heads turned. I stood slowly, savoring the moment as every eye in the room focused on me. The man they'd called worthless was now their new owner. I walked to the front of the room with measured steps, feeling the weight of every stare. The microphone felt solid in my hand as I looked out at faces I recognized, former colleagues, executives who'd laughed at my dismissal, and Leo, sitting pale-faced in the third row. 6 months ago, I began, my voice steady and clear, I sat in a boardroom not far from here. The HR director told me I was worthless. Too old, too slow, obsolete. I paused, letting the silence build. I was fired after 30 years of loyal service, escorted out with a cardboard box while people I'd trained and mentored watched silently. Cameras flashed constantly now. This moment would be replayed on news channels for weeks. Today, I stand here as the new strategic advisor for the company that will own every asset, every contract, and every decision that Optimus Corp once controlled. I smiled, not warmly, but with the satisfaction of complete victory. I want to thank the leadership of Optimus Corp for teaching me a valuable lesson: never underestimate the person you discard. Because that person might just come back to own everything you thought was yours. The room erupted in applause from shareholders who'd watched their investment crumble under Optimus's mismanagement. Justice felt sweet. The most satisfying moment came after the meeting, as executives were being escorted from the building by security, an irony not lost on anyone present. Brenda walked past me, her head down, carrying her own cardboard box. She looked up as she passed, her eyes red from crying. "Warren, Save it," I said quietly. "You made your choice 6 months ago." Leo approached next, his confidence from the boardroom completely gone. The young man who'd laughed at my firing was now facing unemployment himself, with a reputation damaged beyond repair. "Warren, please," he said desperately. "You know I didn't want this to happen. I was just following orders. Maybe we could work something out." I studied his face, seeing the fear and desperation I'd felt 6 months earlier. "Leo, you had a choice in that boardroom. You could have stayed silent, or walked out, or spoken up for me. Instead, you laughed." "I was scared," he said weakly. "So was I replied. "The difference is, I did something about it." Security escorted him out like they'd done to me, but this time I was watching from the other side. The circle was complete, and justice had been served with mathematical precision. The CEO cornered me in the parking lot as I was leaving the hotel. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past 6 months, his expensive suit wrinkled and his confident demeanor completely shattered. "Warren, please," he said, blocking my path to the car. "We can work something out. I'll give you anything you want. Stock options, a board position, whatever it takes." I stopped walking and turned to face him fully. Here was the man who'd approved my firing, who'd backed Brenda's decision to humiliate me, who'd gone on television to brag about getting rid of outdated employees like me. "You want to give me something?" I asked, my voice calm but deadly serious. "Yes, anything. Name your price." I leaned in close, speaking quietly so only he could hear. "You already gave me everything I needed. When you fired me, you set me free. You gave me the motivation to destroy everything you'd built." His face went white as the full scope of what had happened hit him. Was this all planned? "From the moment I walked out with that cardboard box," I said. "You didn't just fire an employee. You created your worst nightmare." I walked to my car, leaving him standing alone in the parking lot, finally understanding the true cost of treating people like they're worthless. 6 months later, I sat in my new office, the same corner office that used to belong to the Optimus CEO. The view is exactly the same, but everything else has changed completely. The wall behind my desk displays framed articles about the takeover, industry awards for CrossPoint's innovative management practices, and a photo from the day we announced our new employee retention policies. No more age discrimination. No more toxic management. No more treating people like disposable assets. Angela leads one of our most successful departments now. Several other former Optimus employees have thrived under our management, proving that experience and wisdom still have value in the modern workplace. My phone rings constantly with calls from other companies seeking advice on management restructuring and employee relations. The man they called worthless has become one of the most sought-after consultants in the industry. But the best part isn't the success or the recognition. It's the knowledge that when someone asks how I turned complete defeat into total victory, I can smile and give them the same answer every time. Never underestimate the person you call worthless. Because that person might just end up owning your job, your company, and your future. The 59-year-old they discarded became the architect of their destruction. And sometimes, that's exactly what justice looks like.